All right, listen. There was a movie called The Lady Killers back in the days. It was with Tom Hanks. It was a Coen Brothers movie. Same guy who wrote The Big Lebowski and all these other movies. And there was this one scene, and they went to the Waffle Hut. That was like their sacred place where they would go.
The Waffle House?
Waffle Hut. Oh. It was the Waffle Hut. Wait, maybe it was the Waffle House.
Yeah, because that's a real place. And
I don't know if they called it the Waffle Hut or the Waffle House and stuff, but I think it was, whatever the case may be, they went there to plan. And it was a sacred place. Nobody was allowed to come outside the group. And one day, J.K. Rowling's character brought his girlfriend. Her name was Mountain Girl. And not Marlon Wayans, the other younger Wayans, couldn't believe it. He was like, he brought his bitch to the Waffle Hut. And it was like this big thing. So anytime when we would have anything that would just be, oh my God. And I was saying yesterday, I was like, The Intercept censored Glenn Greenwald. The Intercept. Now, listen, we know it was going downhill, fam. Yeah. The Ryan Grimms, whatnot. But Glenn Greenwald always had a voice. He created this channel, okay, this network, along with Jeremy Scahill, for this reason that he would never get censored by people within the government or attached to the government so they can say what they want to say. This all came out of the Snowden revelations. So the fact that they censored Glenn Greenwald, The Intercept, the paper he started, the network he started, fam, it blows my mind away. And this 5 days out from an election, this is crazy.
It doesn't blow my mind away because of how corrupt they were. This was a long time coming. We even talked about it. But at the same time, it is really sad to see the place where we thought that at one point, they did really good work. But again, like they were still peddling establishment narratives, and it's really sad because the censorship war has begun, and either you are on one side of it or you're on the other. There's really no middle ground here to be on when it comes to censorship. There is no excuse to censor people, even if you disagree with them, even if they're wrong, even if they're lying. Censoring people is never a good thing. Yeah. So,
and this network was built on his accomplishments, on Glenn Greenwald's accomplishment. That's crazy. Mark Peterson says, "What? The mainstream media lies?" LOL. Thank you for a good show. Thank you, Mark Peterson, for that super chat contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. And here's another unfortunate thing, fam, is that when you want to go on the mainstream media nowadays to talk truth, to talk against the deep state, to talk against the intelligence community, to talk against the establishment, you have to go on Fox News and Tucker Carlson because mainstream media. Why didn't Chris Hayes pick up the phone and say, "Glenn, why don't you come on the show today?" You think that's going to happen?
No.
Hell no. So let's roll the tape over here because he pretty much lays everything out on the only mainstream media network you can go on if you're a true leftist, Fox. Sickening.
About that question. Greenwald is a traditional leftist. He's committed above all to forcing transparency on people who hold power. Years ago, Greenwald co-founded a news site called The Intercept. Today he resigned. In a statement, Greenwald explained why. Quote, "The Intercept's editors, in violation of my contractual right of editorial freedom, censored an article I wrote this week, refusing to publish it unless I removed all sections critical of Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden, the candidate vehemently supported by all New York-based Intercept editors involved in this effort at suppression." And he went on. Greenwald's full statement is up tonight at an internet platform called Substack, which is not yet censored. No matter who you plan to vote for next week, we recommend that you read it. Glenn Greenwald joins us tonight. Glenn, thanks so much for coming on. The idea of you resigning from a news organization you helped found is stunning. Tell us why you did.
Well, the news organization that I co-created was in 2013 at the height of the Snowden reporting. I left The Guardian to do it because I was seeing that there were a lot of constraints imposed on journalism and our ability to report freely against governments, against power centers, against all kinds of institutions that wield authority. And the premise of the news outlet, the core overarching premise, the reason it was created was to ensure that journalists would always have complete journalistic independence and editorial freedom, never have to pull punches journalistically or pay homage to pieties because of the preferences, the partisan or ideological preferences of editors or of anybody else. That was the core founding idea and vision. And then that is what makes it so amazing that at the very outlet that I co-created, that was built on my reputation, my credibility, my journalistic accomplishments, then tried to intervene to censor me 6 days before an election because I wanted to publish reporting and analysis about the evidence that raises serious questions about the conduct of the candidate that all of the editors at that outlet vehemently and enthusiastically support.
I would imagine that some of our viewers don't read The Intercept. You live outside our country, which is one of the reasons I think you say what you think is true. Tell us what this portends for the future here in the United States.
So The Intercept was actually, for a while, a unique publication, and I think the vision I just described is one reason, but another was that it was intended, above all else, to be highly skeptical of the claims of intelligence agencies. At the time when we were doing the reporting, the attacks were coming from the NSA, the CIA, the deep state against me, against my source Edward Snowden, and against the reporting. And we knew they were lying constantly and disseminating propaganda in a very powerful way. So we set out to say, we're going to investigate them. We're going to be skeptical of them. We're going to subject their assertions to critical scrutiny. And I am so embarrassed and angered that the media outlet that I created, along with two other excellent journalists, to do that, the only article it published about all of these documents that have emerged about Joe Biden, other than a column of mine where I denounced Facebook and Twitter for censoring it, was an article that made reference in passing to those documents very snidely and dismissively to say that no one should pay attention to it because it was Russian disinformation, and it cited a letter from John Brennan, James Clapper, Mike Hayden, and the rest of the goons from the CIA and the intelligence community asserting it. And worse still, that letter said, we have no evidence that Russia's involved in any of this. The Intercept omitted that phrase, simply cited that letter to try and encourage people to ignore this evidence on the grounds that Russia had manufactured it and that the evidence was fabricated, even though there's never been any evidence for that's been true. And everything since has disproven it, showing Russia was not involved in any of this, and nobody, certainly not even Joe Biden, disputes that these emails and other text messages are completely real and authentic.
It's horrifying. So what you're watching is agencies of the U.S. government turning their awesome and unconstrained powers against the American population.
This is the real story of the last 4 years of the Trump administration, which is that for a long time on the left, there was a healthy skepticism of the CIA.
Yes, there was.
There was a lot of anti-war activism in the Bush and Cheney years. That has all disappeared. And the reason it's disappeared is because the CIA, from the very first days of the Trump administration, even before he was inaugurated, devoted themselves to sabotaging the administration because Donald Trump questioned just a few of their pieties. And that can't be done in Washington. Whoever does that must be destroyed. And so the CIA and the deep state operatives became heroes of the liberal left, the people who support the Democratic Party. They're now in a full union with the neocons, the Bush-Cheney operatives, the CIA, Silicon Valley, and Wall Street. That is the union of power, along with mainstream media outlets that are fully behind the Democratic Party, which is likely to at least take over one branch of government, if not all of them, in the coming election. And that is a very alarming proposition because they're authoritarian, they believe in censorship, and they believe in suppression of information that exposes them in any kind of a critical light.
For a U.S. government agency to try and disseminate propaganda within the United States, I mean, is there any clearer attack on democracy than that?
So when we were doing the Snowden reporting, one of the things that induced Edward Snowden to come forward as someone who had worked in the CIA and the NSA was his anger and horror that the tools of the NSA had been turned on the American people. They're supposed to spy on foreign adversary governments, but they weren't. They were collecting our phone records. Same with the CIA. They're trained disinformation agents. That's what they do. They lie for a living. But they're supposed to do that in other countries where we want to induce some sort of change, overthrow a government, topple a regime, whatever quote-unquote interference the U.S. government wants to do, the way we're also upset that Russia did in 2016. That's what they're trained to do. The law, though, and the obvious foundational prohibition on having a security state, a national security state after World War II, was it was never supposed to be turned domestically. They weren't supposed to be involved in our politics or disseminating propaganda. Go turn on any of those other cable networks or pick up the op-ed page of any of the biggest newspapers, and all you'll see are ex-members of the CIA, the DOJ, the FBI, the NSA, telling Americans what they ought to believe. They've infiltrated the means of communication domestically. They do it through leaks. They do it through clandestine operations and through lies. They propagandize the American people in a way that is incredibly dangerous no matter what your ideology is.
I totally agree, and I'm ashamed of the times that I made apologies for those agencies or this behavior. I really am. You are telling the truth. That's really clear. Glenn Greenwald, congratulations on getting out of there. Good to see you.
I apologize for those agencies. I used to kiss their ass. So, fam, do you want to start with this right now? Because that was...
Yeah, no, we got to start.
That was powerful. Go ahead. Your comments on that right now, because Operation Mockingbird, fam, the CIA, the deep states, they infiltrate the mainstream media. They've done it, and they've got it going on. He told all the connections, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, whatnot, the mainstream media. They're out there waving a flag for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big story. I 100% agree with Glenn Greenwald. That is a big, big story, is the fact that ever since Donald Trump took over, the Democratic establishment, full, not of just Democrats, but also Republican neocons, have been absolutely going after him because he hasn't been as easily controlled as the previous presidents. That's what it comes down to. Donald Trump isn't a saint. He's terrible in a lot of ways, but at the very least, he's also questioned them in ways that's made them uncomfortable. So that's why they've been continuously on the whole Russiagate thing, trying to say he was working with Putin to rig the elections. And it's just, even when he brings up Russiagate, there's this anger about it that I understand. It's like, I am getting called a Russian asset today in 2020 all the time now because I'm not voting for Joe Biden, and it's been 3 years of nothing. 3 years, and then a whole debunking, whole declassification of these documents, and they're still acting like this is a thing. Obviously, it's less people, but it's still enough. Put it in the propaganda machine enough to get people to say it like it's real. If you say it enough times, these people start repeating the
lie
same shit.
Becomes real. And calm down, Nikita. You are getting crazy over here. Putin will be mad. Vladimir will get mad that you'll get upset.
That's why Putin and I, we got together and we started making jokes and memes because, I mean, this is ridiculous. At this point, I just have to make it ridicule it because it's that disgusting. And he talks about the connections too. And this is, again, yet another thing that we saw on Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube. These people on this board, these people that are in charge of the Intercept, have direct connections to Joe Biden. They are all supportive of him. All of them, every single one of them. Do not tell me that that's not going to affect how they do their reporting, especially if they are censoring. I would say if they're not censoring, sure, your individual bias is your individual bias. We all have one. But if you start censoring journalists from doing what they're supposed to do, which is talking about the story, because Glenn Greenwald isn't doing a story on it, and very few people are talking about the Biden, Hunter Biden, Burisma, the laptop, etc. Very few people are talking about it because not everybody has access to all of this firsthand account information. Yeah. But the people that do are right-wing outlets. So now it's like, even if as a leftist I start using these outlets, we're like, oh, but it's just the Gateway Pundit, which I can't stand what's her face anyway. But they have these outlets. They're talking about these things. They're the only outlets talking about it. Yep. Why does the right have to be the only ones talking about it?
It's crazy. And I think it would really be really powerful if Li Fang makes a move before the election, says, I'm walking too, and gets the hell out of there. Go get the guacamole from Quald Orleans. Thank you for almost 500 people watching on the YouTubes. We need more people on the Rokfin, Rokfin. Now, fam, inside what you were talking about, these people with connections to what's going on. And I think a lot of our audience has probably seen that one video where all the news channels get on the same page. It's almost like Silicon Valley is all on the same page. They all said we're going to suppress the Hunter Biden story from the New York Post. It's like they have an email or a phone call. So in Matt Taibbi's article in Substack, where Glenn Greenwald is at right now, you can go join Glenn Greenwald for $5 a month and help him out. The money goes right to him, no longer going through a corporation. But Matt Taibbi also put down what the editors and the reasons they gave, and I think it's kind of important to pay attention to. So I want to read about this one article, this one part of the article in Matt Taibbi's article, when Glenn Greenwald, who also put up these emails as well on Substack, he put up his article, Matt Taibbi's reason for the resignation, and the emails going back and forth about what's going on. So let's just read this right here. He writes the article, he writes a little one, he kind of puts it out there, and then the editors get a hold of it. So here are the two editors kind of teaming up on him, and listen what they're talking about, fam, because this is so intriguing, and it gives you insight to the way they're kind of going out and combating this in the mainstream media as far as the Hunter Biden and the Joe Biden situation. Betsy agrees with me that the draft's core problem is the connection it often asserts or assumes between the Hunter Biden emails and the corruption of Joe Biden. Now, let me make this clear right now. Donald Trump is not going after Hunter Biden because he wants to go after Hunter Biden to hurt Joe Biden. He's going after Hunter Biden because there's a connection. He says it very much in his language. Hunter Biden was like a vacuum, and he gave it to who? The big guy. We know who the big guy is. You know what I'm saying? So he's trying to make that assertion that Joe Biden used Hunter Biden to rape and pillage these countries and their money and give them favors. And now he's very much compromised by doing so. There are many places in which the explicit or implied person is A, the emails expose corruption by Joe Biden, and B, news organizations are suppressing their reporting on it, which was the big issue. Those positions strike me as a foundation to this draft, and they also strike me as inaccurate.
One thing I disagree with is that Donald Trump isn't doing this to connect everything to Joe Biden. I mean, obviously, it's election time. It benefits him greatly if he connects it to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So
well, I was saying no. I was saying he wasn't going after Hunter Biden to just go after Hunter Biden. He was going after Hunter Biden as a connection to the corruption in which Joe Biden used Hunter Biden. So it wasn't like just why not go after his wife? Why not have to go after Joe Biden's brother? He was going after Hunter because Hunter showed a straight connection to the corruption that was going on, sucking out money that eventually went.
You're saying Trump or Glenn?
Trump.
Okay.
Trump. Well, I mean, anybody who's going after Hunter Biden right now, they're connecting it to Joe Biden.
Well,
you know
Trump is going after Hunter Biden. Everybody else is just reporting on what's going on.
Yeah.
That's a completely different thing. But yeah, go ahead.
Mass added that he didn't believe Greenwald had done enough to address the complexity of the disinformation issue. Fam, what does this mean really? I mean, what are they asserting, the deep state, that two Russians were sitting together? Let's have plan. Let's give disinformation. Let's make up story that Hunter Biden is smoking crack and pedophilia, and then we'll put it out of there, and Republicans and Democrats will fight. This is good disinformation.
Yeah, that's what the Russians do all day.
That's what they're implying.
Well, disinformation is just literally in the last couple months has been a term that they've decided to throw out now. Instead of calling it Russia interference and blah blah blah, now they're saying, oh, this year it's disinformation from the Russians that are working and colluding with Donald Trump to do this right before the election. I mean, why is this coming out right before the election? This has been out for a while. It's just like Donald Trump didn't really hop on it, and these outlets didn't really have all the information until now because it's targeted like that. It's an election. Of course they're going to use it to their own benefit. That doesn't mean it's not true. Yeah. That doesn't mean that there's no fire under there.
But it seems just like a pecking order from the CIA. Put out disinformation, and everybody got on the whole bandwagon. Let's throw out the word disinformation out there, and we'll really, sum it up.
We should wait to read them until we're done with the section.
I'm not reading that real quick. I'm just having them up so they don't lose them. Lastly, I think the disinformation issue should be handled with greater complexity. So here are the editors trying to push it like, hey, talk about the complexity of the disinformation. Push the disinformation. I think it's totally right to the point.
Editors who like and support Joe Biden.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but the argument that some people make about disinformation, and I think that you should address, is the way the materials are being used by Giuliani, the right-wing media, and Trump to support an exaggerated and false narrative, a narrative that is not supported by the materials themselves. This is a complete lie, and it's the same thing. Let's kill the messenger. They're putting out Russian disinformation, fam, and people will buy it. This is how stupid they think you are, ladies and gentlemen. This is how stupid they think you are. You can click that top one over there. Let's talk about the little fight. Now, I mean, that just laid out everything right there. What the editors are trying to do, what Glenn went through. He had to go on Tucker. Isn't it a shame, fam, that he has to go on Tucker?
Yeah, and he's getting attacked by that. So we'll talk about that later.
But it's so stupid because it's the only place he can go.
I know, but people don't get that. So.
All right, so this one here, here's Chris Hayes and Glenn Greenwald going at it. So Chris Hayes puts up a tweet. If Hitchens had been lived, he'd be making $1 million a year on Substack, writing exclusively about woke mobs and why the U.S. must go to war with China. So here he is. He's right there. He's poking fun at the fact that Glenn Greenwald went over to Substack. He goes, that's about 1/5 of what you're making, Chris. He tells him, because Chris is making about $5 billion a year, not from individuals, but from a huge corporation. For giggling every night in reference for Amy Klobuchar and Adam Schiff. So in comparison, it seems a bit more noble. Substack being that you make direct donations right to the people themselves rather than the corporation taking in corporate money and then putting it out there to pay you with. Then it got really interesting. You were mentioning too as well with Chris Hayes and Aaron Matei and whatchamacallit, Glenn Greenwald all jumping in. Chris Hayes puts LOL. It's the next one right there. If you click on it, Johnny. Aaron Matei said, what are you laughing at? The idea that a journalist could actually have some integrity, courage, and commitment to the standards of their profession rather than personal profit. And then Glenn Greenwald put, do you think Chris, while he's giggling, will let them hold all the journalism awards he's won for his intrepid, brave, and important investigations? If I'm not mistaken, the FBI paid him a visit after one very hard-hitting interview with Amy Klobuchar. That's the stuff he's made of. So they kind of went back and forth on it, fam, right there.
Well, Chris Hayes is a hack and a propagandist, so, I mean, he has no leg to stand on.
And, Johnny, put that last, if you go right below it, if you just show the replies right there, Aaron Matei put this up. Yes, and don't forget that he's also the one who helped us alert us that Trump may have been a Russian intelligence asset since 1987. There he is with Jonathan Chait, this donkey. If you can put that picture up, Johnny, just there he is once again, like he had him on, and this guy literally said that it's a chance that Donald Trump is a Russian agent since 1987. This is the shit they're peddling, ladies and gentlemen. If you believe
propaganda,
this stuff,
you guys.
Wow,
it's propaganda.
Wow. So I just really, to tell you the truth, I have Glenn's article up that forced him to resign. I was just going to read the reason why he put it up here. I'm not going to go into the article. It's a long article, but I can tell you this much, fam. He doesn't really necessarily go after Joe Biden.
No.
He does the Glenn Greenwald thing where he questions everything. Well, maybe you should be looking at this. Maybe you should be looking at that.
But you should have the capacity to do that. You should have the ability to do that. That is journalism. That doesn't mean he's taking a stance one way or the other. He's simply reporting on it, which is what he's supposed to fucking do.
Yeah. And pretty much right here, he just says, I'm posting the most recent article about Joe and Hunter Biden, the last one seen by the Intercept editors before telling me that they refused to publish it, absent major structural changes involving the removal of all sections critical of Joe Biden, leaving only a narrow article critiquing media outlets. I will also, in a separate post, publish all the communications I had with the Intercept editors surrounding this article so you can see the censorship in action. And given the Intercept's denials, decide for yourselves. And he pretty much just goes on to talk about the claims of why what they wanted to remove, what we showed you, what they were talking about, kind of putting up the whole disinformation, the complexity of it. Try to make the complexity of a shit sandwich look good, fam, is what they're trying to say. Right. And he put it out the way he had it. He would normally say he would make corrections, typos, that kind of things, kind of trim it down. But he put it out as is, fam, because he wanted you to see what the Intercept is saying, what the editors said no on. So, yes, that is there as well. So go ahead and take a look at it. Now, inside the article, fam, I thought it was kind of interesting since we're talking about all this kind of censorship, whatnot, and stuff. He points out and he puts a link to it to where all the money in Silicon Valley is going to. So, Johnny, this next article right here real quick that we have up, and you can see it's from Protocol. Here are the top political donors from Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft. Only one, fam, is backing Donald Trump. And it gives you the list of everybody there, all the money they've given. $16 million of it this cycle alone has gone to who? Joe Biden and the Democrats. So when you see them on the floor pushing for censorship, you know who their daddy is. Right. You want to talk about a Congress that is compromised? The Democrats, fam? And where is AOC? Where's the squad? Where is Bernie Sanders talking up on censorship? Nowhere. Silent. And here's the money connections. Glenn Greenwald puts it out in his article, and that's something else that his editors didn't like. It was something else that they'd say, you have to take this down. Because they didn't want you to see who is buttering the Democrats' bread. Who is buttering Joe Biden's bread? It's the freaking Silicon Valley. And they're all for censorship. And this shit needs to go. This was it for me, fam. I am done with the Democratic Party.
You've been done with the Democratic Party.
Well, there were some candidates I was hanging on to, the Angelica Duenases, the Maria Estradas, the Shane Petars, that I was still saying, man, I'll support them even if they are Democrats. And I still support them, and I hope they have some good victories going on. But I'm going to urge them to change their affiliation and leave that party immediately, because you are going to get no freedom of speech there. And if you take away our freedom of speech, that is full-blown fascism, fam.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are the connections you can't deny, and this is why they don't want people to go investigating, because when you have so many big tech and all of Silicon Valley and all these extremely rich and wealthy corporations supporting Joe Biden, you have to really question why that is. And like when they're sitting there talking about how Donald Trump has given money to the 1%, absolutely, he absolutely has. But look at what these people are doing. They're also getting their money from the top 1%. They're also completely in the bed with these big techs who don't want you to be able to control yourself. They want to control you. They want to censor you, because then they can continue to push that narrative in tandem with the politicians in our country. That is a marriage that should never happen. We should not have big tech in Silicon Valley influence our government and vice versa. That's not the way it was supposed to be. That is not a government by and for the people. That is a corporatocracy. That is an oligarchy. That is the epitome of that. And that is fascism. You're right. That is absolutely fascism. The people want to fight. A lot of the left wants to only fight fascism when it comes to like racial justice, when it comes to the fascism on the streets, which is important as well.
It's very important.
It's important as well. But the censorship is another type of fascism that also directly affects impoverished people. It affects oppressed people. It affects all kinds of people, because the moment though you can't talk about what's going on in like on the streets because it affects some tech giant that doesn't want that to happen, that doesn't want the truth out, then you're screwed too. You're screwing the little guy. You're screwing everybody. So if you actually care about racial justice, if you actually care about being anti-fascist, you will absolutely not support censorship, and that's the bottom line.
The Intercept is censoring Glenn Greenwald. He started the goddamn paper. And fam, here's something we have to go to. And this is the thing that's so disturbing. When you said this yesterday too, you were like, oh, here they go again. Now they're criticizing him for going on Tucker as if he has another outlet like Chris Hayes, which we showed, where he can go on. Like Rachel Maddow's going to go, hey, Glenn, I heard you're quitting. Why don't you come on and tell a story tonight? Wolf Blitzer, Glenn, do you want to come on over here? And, I know Nancy Pelosi's going to feed them, but do you want to come over here and tell your story? No, that doesn't happen. Don Lemon doesn't call up Glenn Greenwald. Cuomo doesn't call up Glenn Greenwald and say, come on my show. It takes Tucker Carlson, who you might not agree with on everything. You might not agree on the stance on immigration.
He has a shit ideology.
But still, we got to call balls and strikes for every pitch that is thrown. And when it comes to censorship right now, the shit pitches are being thrown by the left in Silicon Valley, in Operation Mockingbird, where the deep state, the CIA, has infiltrated our media. And they're shutting down channels like this, like Jason Burmis, like Whitney Webb, like The Last American Vagabond. Ladies and gentlemen, this is some serious stuff right here, and the Democrats are behind it. They stand behind it. On Alex Koch, this guy who went after you too as well, I just wanted to show, he said, who could ever predicted this would happen tonight?
Did you put the tweet that
I do. Yours is below it, but I had to go to his thread first because there was only a couple people gone in your thread real quick. But if you look at this thread real quick, we'll start off and then we'll get to what you said. You'll see. It says, duh, of course we're supposed to stay in our own liberal bubbles. You know what I'm saying? Like it just goes on, fam. He'll probably be a Fox News commentator soon, they say about Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald, who released the Snowden revelations. What's that?
Glenn Greenwald.
I said Glenn Greenwald.
Oh, okay. Sounds like you're saying
the Griswolds. I'm just really, and then there's some people in there who said, Rob Lowe, if he calls that the corrupt them, so be it and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it just and you can see this going on and on and on, where people who aren't paid are just duped into thinking no matter what Tucker Carlson says, it's bad.
Well,
only grifters go on Tucker. Look at that. Why do people go on Tucker Carlson's stupid show? I mean, fam, you got to tell me about this here right now, because once again, go ahead.
I just want to bring up the tweet I did because it's
let's get it up. Fam's tweet is right here
because it pretty much explains it how I feel about this, right?
Let's bring up Fam's tweet because she goes into it.
Okay, so basically,
you said it beautifully, by the way.
Basically, if every other media platform did not pretend that the Biden-Burisma laptop scandal did not exist, for years, the anti-imperialist left has been shut out from these platforms. Absolutely, we absolutely have. The only one that's given us a voice is Tucker Carlson. That's not our fault. It's by design. This is what they want. The establishment wants Tucker Carlson to be the only outlet that gives us a voice, because that way they can turn around and say, oh, you're supporting a white supremacist, da-da-da-da-da. And so there's a lot of the intolerance on the both left and right, but the left right now is having this whole sort of outrage culture. And I think it's a good thing when an independent journalist like Greenwald exposes an opposing audience to this rational thought and to truth. They're opening the door to change and understanding, because like Tucker said, I don't believe that many people who watch the show read The Intercept. Yeah. So here's a leftist voice going on Tucker Carlson to literally talk about the censorship and tell the people on the right, hey, this is wrong. I'm a leftist and I think this is wrong. This is a nonpartisan issue. Okay, so this has to be an issue that we all have to end up discussing, and we have to completely stand against censorship. Once you make that understanding and that bridge, you open an ability for new conversations. And once you have those conversations, you change minds. That's why this is a good thing. And like I said, these types of conversations are useful. And these pearl clutchers on the left bring up racism, okay? I can't stand Tucker Carlson's ideology. I really, really cannot. But it's more consequential, in my opinion, to stay silent on censorship and the encroaching of our rights, which help expose the fascism and the racism. Assange is in jail for exposing racist and fascist U.S. war crimes because of this very system. So all of you that say you care about defeating white supremacy and racism, you don't really care about it if you're promoting censorship, if you're staying silent on the issue of censorship. So I don't see how Greenwald or anyone on the left going on these platforms, and they did this to Niko, they do this to everybody, are siding with white supremacy. They're actually factually educating people, educating an audience, and they're also showing that journalism should be nonpartisan. Even if everyone has an individual bias, this is what I said before. The truth is the truth, period. It doesn't matter if Glenn Greenwald says it, or if Tucker Carlson says it,
or Donald
whoever
Trump
else says it. Exactly. The truth is the truth, period. We cannot be having the truth be dependent on who you support. Whether you support Joe Biden or Trump, the truth changes? No, that's not how it works, especially for a journalist, especially for somebody that is questioning the state, the security state, that is questioning these powers that be. That is what the point of journalism is. If you're not writing what somebody else doesn't want you to write, that is public relations. That is not journalism, period. There is no discussion on that. Everybody gets the right to choose what they believe and what they don't. And if you don't like it, that's fine, but they have the ability to do it. And journalism is always asking questions. Journalism is always going to independent thought. It is not reliant on whether you support a Joe Biden or a Donald Trump. And that's it.
Your good buddy Ryan Grimm, who you met before, right?
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons why we say the Intercept was going to shit. Somebody's like, well, Ryan Grimm writes for the internet. Isn't Ryan Grimm good? Like, no, that Elizabeth Warren stand is not good. I don't like his positions on a lot of things. The Intercept has been, what's the word, infected with a lot of these neoliberal voices. Spam, what did Ryan Grimm say? And break it down. Go ahead.
So Ryan Grimm decided to make this about raising funds for the Intercept. So he said, hey, Glenn Greenwald is a good friend, and that'll never change. But the Intercept remains committed to doing powerful adversarial journalism. Adversarial to who, Ryan? Yeah. Adversarial to who? Support our work by becoming a member. And then below...
oh, do you want to go below the Ryan Grimm?
Yeah. It was... Aaron Matei said, are you kidding me? You're trying to fundraise over the fact that your outlet is censoring its co-founder. Like, seriously? Oh, yeah, we remain committed to adversarial journalism. Adversarial to who? To the public? To the truth? To what? Just Donald Trump now because you're supporting Joe Biden? Instead of, oh, I love Glenn Greenwald, but here's my fundraising link. Please support CIA propaganda pushing journalism.
Yeah.
Please continue.
And we showed that the editors were trying to say that you can't say this. In fact, I find it as false for pushing these Giuliani disinformation. And you should talk about the complexity of disinformation right from the CIA's mouth. What about your friend Naomi Klein here?
Naomi Klein, too. She's somebody that I've admired. She was in Vegas when, the Bernie Sanders won, and she's great on climate. She was. Recently, a lot of stories have come out about these people trying to make money off of the environmental crisis. I think Ben Norton had a story on that. And she said, I'm grateful to Glenn for helping found such an important media outlet. The Intercept is run by editors who give us all exceptional freedom to write and speak while also telling us when we are losing the plot. Losing the plot? What the hell? It's an honor to work with them. Become a member today. So instead of admitting, you know what, maybe Glenn shouldn't have been censored, I stand with Glenn as a writer, as a contributor to The Intercept, because she has contributed multiple times. I stand with Glenn. I think he shouldn't be censored, even if I don't agree with him, even if I think we need to support Joe Biden because of climate, whatever bullshit she wants to say. But no, instead, they're literally trying to push the whole fundraising aspect of it. They're literally completely
in the midst of this and stuff.
Gaslighting him. Oh, you're losing the plot. What do you mean? This isn't a plot. This is fucking reality.
Look what Niko House put under there. This is a creepy take. Losing the plot?
Yes.
In the case is just another way of saying they order us not to damage our team or they'll damage us.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, this isn't a freaking story you're making up. This is reality. Glenn Greenwald is just trying to expose the truth. That's all he's doing.
Fam, it's not letting me go to this moderate rebels mint press thing. I don't know why.
Oh, that's what?
It's saying
that
this
is
connection
weird.
is not private.
Okay, so
it's not letting me get on it. What does this mean, Johnny?
Like this. So it looks like
this is Whitney Webb's article.
Either the internet ISP or the browser. Are you using Chrome or what are you using?
I'm using Safari.
You're using Safari. I'm using Brave on here. It's coming up that it says attackers could try to steal your information. They do this when they're trying to
suppress something,
not get you to go to a site.
Yeah, they're trying to suppress this information.
It's dangerous, but then if you go to advanced, then you can go to it. So Mint Press News is being censored as well.
Of course they are.
Whitney Webb.
Can you read the title, Pam?
It says The Intercept withheld NSA document that may have altered course of the Syrian war.
Right. Okay. So, we've been talking about the Syrian chemical attacks. I did the story with Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett and how the BBC is coming after them, kind of whitewashing and pretty much lying about the white helmets and, how the Western media has painted them as these heroes. So Whitney Webb back, I think, 2017, or I think this article's from, was talking about this and was talking about how the Intercept was completely not putting out all these documents that would have completely exposed these rebels as not being actual moderate rebels. That's the whole point of the title. So let me read a couple things here. I just have two pictures.
ISIS jihadists and the Mujahideen.
Yeah, they're moderate rebels. That's the whole point.
Whatchamacallit, Obama compared them to farmers. and
that's why Norton and Blumenthal made that podcast.
And that's why Tulsi Gabbard called this behavior out like, wait a second over here.
Right.
And they said she's
anti-Muslim.
She has Islamophobic. She's Islamophobic.
Exactly.
For calling out jihadists. Please,
exactly.
man,
So, so the report inaccurately claims, and this is about that particular Intercept article, that the attack launched at the Saudis' behest did not result in any confirmed casualties. It states that in 2011, uprising in Syria was organic, quote, unquote, peaceful movement that led to the Syrian government to, quote, an open wage war against their own people, end quote, a narrative that has since been debunked. Of course, they were completely not peaceful people. What are you talking about? The largest oversight of all is the article's failure to mention that the U.S.'s role in funding the Free Syrian Army, as well as the CIA's well-documented role in training the FSA and pumping tons of weapons into Syria in order to foment and exacerbate the conflict in its early days. In light of the NSA's documents revelation that the U.S. had been given advance notice of the planned FSA attack on civilian targets, no less, the Washington's decision to let it proceed clearly suggests that the U.S. was involved and well aware of the Saudi directives to the FSA, but the Intercept pieces piece chose not to mention
this crucial context.
Yeah. So, and then she later goes on to write that even more troubling than the article's failure to mention the CIA's well-documented role in backing the Free Syrian Army, now exposed as a proxy force, following orders from the Saudi royal family, is the fact that the Intercept had access to these documents for nearly 3.5 years, deciding to publish only now that the Syrian conflict is effectively over and those pushing for regime change have lost. So they could have completely exposed this way before when it could have made a difference, and they freaking didn't.
Yeah.
And she said if it had been published sooner, it could have dramatically changed the course of the war by exposing the true force of the, quote, moderate rebels and potentially save them of thousands of lives. And it didn't happen because they completely refused to publish it, and they had exclusive publishing rights. The Intercept had exclusive publishing rights and a hold on the content of the Snowden leaks. Okay, so that document was part of that. And so the Intercept, of course, and she goes on to point, was founded after the Snowden leaks were made public, and its first hires were Glenn Greenwald and Lauren Poitras, the only journalists possessing the full Snowden cachet. These documents now belong to the Intercept founder, billionaire eBay founder.
Yeah, so I mean, it just shows you too, and Glenn Greenwald's got a lot of shit online too as well for some of the stuff that wasn't reported like this. And he's like, "Listen, dude, I just quit this network because I couldn't get my own work published, let alone these editors and these publishers took control of it, like they do take control of everything else, and just ruin it and piss on it." And that's what they did, and it was awful what they did.
Yep.
And let me tell you something: they were taking weapons out of Libya, moving them over to Syria. These moderate rebels, funding them to the T, arming them to the T,
painting them as literally like the white helmets for also. I mean, this is like they were literally connected to Al Qaeda. They were Al Qaeda type of groups, completely
ISIS and whatnot.
Always completely. Actually, like not moderate rebels, completely fundamentalist groups.
Ridiculous.
And saying that made you anti-Muslim, and that's how they painted it.
So that was interesting, right? And it really, to tell you the truth, that story, so many, just a couple days out from the election, guys. Just a couple days out from the election.
It's disgusting.
Wow.
That is the big story.
Crazy times.
That is the big story, you guys. People do not understand how fascistic this is and how we are fighting fascism, not only in the streets, but also on the internet, through media, through independent journalism. Now it's just basically every one of us is going to have to be an independent journalists of sorts, because guess what, any company you work for, they're going to censor you. This is why we do what we do, because if I had to go to CNN and be like, hey, can I, no, they're not going to let you. They get directives as to what you can or cannot say. And I hate the fact that people get more angry at Glenn Greenwald going on Fox and don't give a crap when freaking Pete Buttigieg goes on Fox, and don't give a crap that people are going on CNN and Rachel Maddow, that AOC went on Rachel Maddow. Like, Rachel Maddow is a conspiracy theorist. She's been spewing Russia conspiracy gate for the last 3 years. Why don't you hold them at an even keel? Just because you don't like their ideology, they're both liars. They're both conspiracy theory networks. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
If he can go on a platform to literally inform people, he should.
Yeah. And seeing Jack Dorsey going, well, we don't want to put a hack material up and stuff, so that's why we censored the Joe Biden situation, because the sources weren't verified. They put out this Steele dossier, they had no sources on this thing, and when the sources came back, it was some drunk alcoholic asshole in a bar making shit up about Putin that was put inside the Steele dossier that was used for Pfizer court warrants and everything else. They didn't have sources for that situation. It didn't stop them from peddling that across the board, left and right.